Welcome back. This is episode 7 of the podcast. Today we're discussing all the business related things in photography. We're talking about crews, styles, getting an agent, estimates, usage, and politics, which is a very, very fitting right now. But yes, that's what we're going to do. I'm joined again by Rob.
Howdy, folks.
And we're just going to kind of dive right into it, I guess. What I've done is I've opened this up for questions from you guys in my Facebook group and on the YouTube channel. But for those who don't know, you can listen to this podcast literally anywhere, whichever platform you use for podcasts. I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, we're now everywhere.
Literally everywhere.
Everywhere, which is great. We weren't before. I thought we were. We were not.
Took a little time to sync everything into Apple and Spotify and whatnot.
Yeah, there was a few issues. So now you can listen to it whilst you're driving, or you can watch it on YouTube if you want. We do sometimes have bits where we're showing stuff, but I try and describe it well enough that you get the gist with it.
I was told I had a great face for radio once. So.
Oh, there we go. I was told worse than that, but there we go. So I get a lot of questions, and this is one which was asked. The actual question is, how important is it to have a team for photography? And what are those people and what do they do on set? Why do you need them? And then on YouTube videos, sort of unrelated to this, it's like, well, why have you got all those people? Just do it yourself. So I'm going to kind of tackle both of those and drag Rob into it as well, because Rob works as part of my team. But first of all, I want to talk about the why. Why do we work in teams rather than by ourselves? So I could theoretically do everything myself. And that's fine. And that's obviously what you do when you start out. You're a one-man band and you just crack on with it. But to work at the very, very high level, which I'm aiming to be working at for the remainder of my career, the quality of work has to be perfect. There's no room for, I was a bit tired or I messed this up. So the way that I see it is this. You have 100 matches at the start of a job and you can burn them all. And you can burn them however you wish. So if I take a recent job we did, which was abroad, if I had have done all the negotiating for the contract, the fees, all that sort of stuff, if I'd have done all of the logistics, like booking the hotels and all the rest of it, the travel stuff, if I'd have packed all the kit, taken the kit with me by myself, carried it through the airports, got to my hotel, made a dinner reservation. These all sound like small things at the moment, but it'll make sense in a bit. Woke up the next day for the shoot, sorted my breakfast out, collected all of my bags, took them all to the studio by myself, unloaded all of them into the studio by myself, set up by myself, and then began shooting. I've already burnt a lot of matches. And then during the shoot, if I'm moving everything myself, if I'm checking focus, if I'm doing backups, if I'm doing all of these different bits, by the time it comes to making the important decision, I might well be out of matches. And I think that's why we use a crew. There's also the thing that nobody outside of YouTube commenters knows everything about photography. And Rob, you'll be able to fill them in on my huge knowledge gaps of anything technical. Rob's just set this whole podcast up because I probably could do it.
You could, but I just did it faster and easier.
Yeah, you did it faster, easier, and definitely correct. Whereas if I did it, it would take ages. And there's every chance we'd have no audio and you'd just be watching me like a puppet. But that's kind of why we have crews. And the more budget a job has, the bigger the crew is. And what that means is when I turn up, so what actually happens on a shoot is, say the job abroad, a driver turns up at my house, I get in there with my clothing, and that's it. I get taken to an airport, to a flight that's been booked, I get on the flight, I get off at the other side, a driver picks me up, takes me to a hotel. My dinner's already sorted. I go for dinner. I wake up in the morning, have breakfast, which is already arranged. A driver then takes me from my hotel to the shoot location where all of the rental equipment has turned up. A crew is unloading it. Somebody's sorting out the hard drives in the capture station. By the time I turn up to go, right, what are we doing? I've got 100 matches. And I think and you've worked with me on both very small jobs where it's been just the two of us through to, you were remote on the Johnson & Johnson's job, but that was a reasonable big crew. You've been in here with big crews, haven't you? Have you done big crews in person? Because often you're retouching, which is like after the event.
Normally I'm not tucked away in the office, so I don't get to see too much what's going on out here.
But
what's been brought to me.
What's your take on the many people? Do you see the difference? Do you notice the difference?
Yeah, it's like all things. It's back down to the same thing that we sort of talked about in a previous episode about time management and efficiencies. Like, yes, you can do everything, but if you just look at the scenario you're in of the one you did recently abroad, that one day of shooting now becomes 7 days if you have to do it all yourself. So straight away, you've lost 6 actual days of time by the time you go there, set everything up yourself, etc., etc. And also the actual shoot itself, I mean, you always have your bullet point. We've got 7 shots we have to get today. Now, if your sole concern is getting the shot and having everything, exactly how you want it, that's completely achievable. If you have to, every time a shot's taken, go back to the workstation, check it on the monitor, etc., etc., all of a sudden now that 7 shots becomes 2 to 3 days to be able to get that, because you're forever back and forth and you're not concentrated on what the important thing for you as the creative has to be responsible
exactly for. And I think it's also worth noting that, and this, I'm just going to phrase this carefully, my time costs a lot of money for the client, assistant's time does not. It's better to have, like, you could have 15 assistants to my day rate, and it's better to have them making everything move faster. Like, often we'll have somebody building a set in the next room whilst we're shooting another one, than it is for them to be paying me on my time to do that. Now, we do get the odd new client or like smaller client who refuse to have the crew I want. And then they realize after the fact that they spent a lot of money having me do stuff, which, because they're still paying me, I don't, like, if I start moving equipment, I don't suddenly drop my hourly rate for that period of time. I'm still on.
And your day rate becomes a 2 to 3 day rate.
Exactly.
Because again, down to inefficiencies.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, we're going to go into some of the specifics of the crew on set, because there's quite a few bits and pieces on a set. But yeah, it's definitely, financial efficiency, time efficiency, and then also creative efficiency, because we're paid to know exactly how to make our work look like our work, not to physically move every tiny piece. And one of the questions was, and I think that I asked it before and I hadn't answered it, like, what does the DigiTech do? So DigiTech's a key. And we just did a really small shoot recently where they didn't have budget for DigiTech. So again, I was sat down on my day rate doing DigiTech work, which 1, I'm not good at, 2, I'm not interested in, and 3, it's more expensive.
Yeah, of course.
So I've sat at a computer and I'm like taking annotations for the edit, writing down how the retouch needs to happen when I could be shooting. I'm then doing the backups, and and the DigiTech, what they do is they sit at my trolley, which I think is somewhere behind us, but like hidden behind us. They sit there, they're in charge of the digital side of things. So the camera and the computer is their domain. So they turn the camera on. They check the settings on the camera. They change the settings on the camera. And you might be going, well, why don't you change your own camera settings? It's like, of course I know how to change camera settings, but if someone else is worrying about that for me, I can make sure that something else looks good.
Again, especially when you're sort of lining the shot up, if you're like, oh, could you just go up a third of a stop for me? By the time you've moved, adjusted that third of a stop and come back, now all of a sudden you're not in exactly the same place that you were before.
Exactly.
So everything is slightly out.
Exactly. So, and they also check, like, because I'll be focusing really hard on one specific thing, and they'll be like, oh, he's a third of a stop up, we'll just change his ISO a little bit for him. Or, they'll just make those adjustments. And they'll add the color grade. And they fire the camera as well on still life, because you don't want to be touching the camera because it moves it, which is never good for like composite work afterwards and stitching stuff together. So they're very important, Digitechs are, and not having one is an absolute nightmare. And it meant at one point me sitting down on set for an hour sorting files out whilst the whole shoot stopped.
Yeah.
Which was, of course, not ideal, but...
Which also impacts on the post-production.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, it is a bit of a slippery slope. So in terms of crew, I have like a go-to crew for the average shoot I do. We have the same jobs and often the same people. I like to try and keep the same crew as often as possible, but of course they're all freelance, so it's, swings and roundabouts. So Rob often does the retouch. And we sometimes get additional help in for the retouch if there's a lot of it. We'll have 2 retouchers, maybe 3, because often it's quite fast turnarounds. It's like we shoot it today, it goes to print in 48 hours. So Rob does the retouch. Digitech wise, there's a few that we use with like a guy called Liam, but he's often booked out because everyone likes Liam. So he's very hard to get hold of. He's very good. He's also like 7 foot tall, so he can like adjust lights while standing up without having to move them, which is brilliant. I then have a first assistant who's my lighting assistant, and a second assistant who sort of does grip and like moving kit around and that sort of thing. We then have a stylist, styling assistant, and then that'll be either food or still life on what we're shooting. Then we have what's called the art department, and they make stuff. So a yellow TV remote, which wasn't yellow before, the art department does it. Making a box to look perfect, the art department does it. If we want the fries to look a certain way inside a box, they'll build something to make it happen. They're very good, and they often come on set as well, which is lovely. So they come around. So art department, stylists, they're all very useful people. Then we have the prop sourcing, which is sometimes done by the stylist, but sometimes it's done by a prop sourcing company. We like to use China and White. They're our preferred supplier of propage. We pay full retail. We don't get any discounts in the commercial world. It's not like YouTube where you mention a brand and you get a discount. They don't care. They're good at what they do. Everyone pays full price. And then we have producers. So my producer, Karen, who you've met, have you?
I have met Karen, yes.
Yeah, Karen's lovely. She produces. She makes everything happen for stills, and then Andy does it for TV and video. Often my agent, Pete, comes down if it's a decent sized job to schmooze. And that's my crew. And then the ad agency turns up with a creative director, art director, often a suit, which I think is a derogatory term. Shouldn't call them suits, should we? Like an account manager.
In fairness, they rarely wear suits these days. So
no, they don't anymore. They used to wear suits. But yeah, some sort of suit turns up. And then often the actual client from the brand will turn up with one or two people. So that's everyone on set for the average job. And when they get bigger, everything gets bigger. So that, it can go up to like 20, 30 man crew to like photograph a bottle of fairy liquid. And of course, I can shoot a bottle of fairy liquid by myself, but I can do it better, quicker, and more financially economically if I do it with everybody. And it's just, it's a better way of working.
And it's often the case of false economies. And the phrase I used to use a lot is that there's people that know the price of everything but the value of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, with smaller brands, and we don't do many smaller brand jobs now because we're a nightmare, we often have to go to them. It's like, look, if you do not pay for this person to be here, it's going to cost you this much more, and it won't be as good. And
importantly, I think you probably agree with this, that most of your smaller clients tend to be the same or next day deliveries.
Yeah, they've always messed it up. Which is annoying. And again, like you could say, well, I didn't set my camera up. I didn't choose the camera settings. I didn't set the lighting up. Did I take the photo? There's a creative director there doing something else.
This is the front cover of every Vogue magazine ever.
Yeah.
The photographer literally rolls up, presses a button, and leaves again.
Yeah, everything I don't even press the button most of the time. It's maybe I should start pushing the button myself. And I think that's one of the big changes from like when you're starting out, where you're doing everything. It feels very much like you've done it all, and then it's now a collaborative effort under the creative direction of your photographic vision. And you become more of a director than you do a photographer, I think. Like, I don't remember the last time I held a camera in my hand because of the sort of stuff I shoot. But yeah, I don't know. Anything to add on the crewage?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, certainly I can relate a lot of that to the film world. I mean, having, sort of self-produced a couple of films, the last thing you want to be is the producer.
Yeah.
Because that is the most thankless, hateful job. And hats off to people that are good at that, because they're absolutely worth their weight in gold. And what I kind of found is that from doing literally everything, bar being in front of the camera and the talent for that, is you wheel it down to what you actually want to do. And I now quite happily say, with my heart on my sleeve, that I'm quite satisfied and happy and encouraging myself to be just the director of photography. I just want to make it look cool, and that's my job. I've done producing, I've done directing, didn't enjoy any of it. So, that's, you have to kind of niche down and again, find good people to fill in the other roles that you don't want to do, which allows you to concentrate better and give more of your time to the bit you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. And you can make your work look more like your work if all you're focusing on is the work. The next, we're filming 2 episodes today, so it's a double whammy because we're a bit behind on schedule. But there's a question in next week's episode which is about how ISO works technically. I'm sure you probably know. I don't have. We won't spoil it for people now. We live on a cliffhanger, but like, I don't have a clue, and it's not my job to know. Like, that's what the DigiTech knows. They'll choose my ISO for me because it doesn't matter. Like, they're just
Yeah, all the important to you in terms of your job is how does the image look?
Exactly.
You know, the rhyme and reason to why it looks this particular way at a certain ISO is almost irrelevant. All you need to know is that it does.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't care about the technicalities of the what's the why. It's just, is it nice? Yes, it is. And of course, when I started in photography, I did know all of this stuff. But likewise, I used to be able to go, well, I've just shot this film at this EV in this scenario, so I'm going to use this developer at this duration, and like, I'd be able to like pick the developer and know exactly what it's going to come out like to print on the paper stock I wanted to print on. I don't know any of that anymore because there's a lab that does it for me for shoot film.
Yeah, exactly. And again, they're very good at it.
They're very good at it. They're very good at it indeed. But yes, which brings us on to, in no seamless way whatsoever, election season. So in the States, there's an election going on. In France, there's an election going on. In the UK, we've just had an election. And someone was saying, how does it sort of affect things? And I don't know how it is in your industry, but in mine, it's bad. How has it been in yours?
I mean, things haven't been good for a while.
Well, there's that as well.
In fairness, and without sort of getting too into the weeds of politics per se, what's actually seems to have happened over the last week is, as you know, we have a new prime minister.
We do. Keir Starmer.
Keir Starmer, indeed, Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
But literally nothing has changed in the last week.
No, it's a bad time to come into power, though, isn't it? In the middle of summer, it's like
and again, it's rather than the sweeping brush that's making blanket changes immediately to stamp his authority. It seems business as usual, even though the balance of power in Westminster is completely flipped upside down.
Yeah, so we've just had, and I won't bother with too much on this, but we've had a major change of power in the UK, not just in terms of who's in control, but by how much they're in control. It's been a huge swing. More so, I think, was it 98 when Blair came in, 97, 98?
Yeah, so it was similar to that. But I mean, we also had a very similar thing sort of 5 years ago when Boris won a huge majority.
Yeah.
But in fairness, that election was less about electing our governors. It was more of a Brexit referendum.
Yeah,
is honestly what that was.
Yes, yeah, it was a bit of a hoo-ha. But regardless of the outcome and people's political opinions, what has happened is when the election was announced, everybody froze their budgets. Everybody I work with, at least, froze their budgets, and all my shoots were cancelled or put on hold. But the problem is they're put on hold for so long that by the time they're off hold, they're no longer relevant. And we're just getting back into it now. So we've currently got, I think it's like 3 ad campaigns back to back, which is nearly a year's work. But it's because they just have all gone, oh, we need this now. So we're very busy. Hence doing this on a Monday, the day after the World Cup final, which was England v Spain, and being half Spanish, half English, it was a win-win for me.
Yeah, you were in a no-lose situation there.
Yeah, it didn't go down so well when I celebrated in the house full of English people, but there we go. But yeah, so, things are picking up now. It seems everyone I speak to on the agency side says things are starting to pick up. They're starting to get work come through. But it's been the worst almost 2 years in the industry since 2008. So
yeah. And obviously, there's been a lot of hangover from the pandemic.
Yeah, there's the pandemic, there's Brexit, and then there's years and years of austerity. So yeah, fun times. So see what it brings. I mean, can it? I was about to say it can't be any worse than it has been, but I guess it can.
Every time someone says that, it gets worse.
Yes.
But at least what we do have, at least for the next 5 years now, is certainty of governance. So, people can tend to sort of naturally fall into their patterns and rhythms now, knowing that it's going to be 5 years before we have another election.
Yeah, which is good. It means we get a good solid run before we have.
And election years are always interesting because people are sort of unsure as to who's going to win and what the impact of that will be on all sorts of areas of society. Really.
Yeah, and I think as a business owner, you have to be aware of this cycle of elections. Every election year will be bad.
Yeah.
And if you're not prepared for that, then you're not running a business right. If you're not going, I need some extra money in the coffers, or let's not go and buy all that new stuff. If you just went and bought loads of new camera gear this year in the UK and you haven't got 75 grand sat in the bank, you've probably made a bad choice. I'd go and return that if it was me. That's how I do it. But yeah, so that's how that's gone. And really, this next point here we're going to deal with is probably something I should have dealt with at the previous point, which is dealing with the pressure of one-day shoots. surrounded by people relying on you to get it right, knowing that vast sums of money are involved, and how I deal with it. Because it does link back to the previous post, but I've organised my notes badly, so it's not quite flowing as smoothly as we might have hoped. But there we go. We could always jump cut it in.
Well, we won't.
No, we won't. Nobody
got time for that.
No, that's too much faff. We'll be here forever. We do not have the time nor budget, and that's kind of a business thing as well, really, isn't it? It's like we've got 3 cameras set up right now recording this. You may be seeing it on monocam or multicam, depending on the time we have to get it done, because we'd love to do multicam, but it takes longer, so we'll see how we're doing. But yeah, the pressure. Now, you've worked with me on lots of different jobs when I've been very stressed, I'd imagine.
I have, yes.
How do I deal with the pressure? I don't get stressed anymore. I don't know if you've noticed.
No, I mean, compared to sort of one-on-one jobs where there's a quiet seething going on with you most of the time.
Yes.
And it's kind of, right, okay, we're halfway through the day. What have we cocked up?
Yes.
You know, as to okay, I'm happy with how the day is going so far. You know, that is definitely a mood change when you've got more people around you.
Yes, yeah. I think I definitely I turn up on jobs now not stressed at all. There was definitely a point though. I think the first time I got paid £10,000 to take one photo, I was very stressed, and it was because of the sum of money for the one photo and the expectation. And the first time I did a £100,000 shoot, I was very stressed. I did not sleep the night before, because if you mess that up, that's probably the end of your career.
Yeah, and like all things, I mean, it sounds like a wonderful problem to have.
Yes.
But at the same time, like I said, the weight of expectation, and it's a weight you put upon yourself as well, that, you know, you feel responsible for all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, every penny of it.
Yeah, and it's not just that you're responsible for the photographs, you're also responsible for the crew. And like, if someone in the crew is being a bit of a idiot, that reflects on you. So you have to also manage the crew and their interaction with clients and stuff like that. If someone starts spouting off conspiracy theories, you got to quickly, you know, pop them in the back room for a bit and, you know, give them a metal hat, like a tinfoil hat or something. Or if they start ranting about political opinions, you know, all these sorts of things, which as a photographer you don't do, but maybe someone coming up who's not familiar with like social etiquettes, perhaps, you know, they might go and dive in and start telling you why Reform UK is the, you know, superior, whatever it may be. So that's stressful as well. I think I find that side more stressful now than the shoots.
And that also goes back to what you were saying about where you kind of, you now have got to the point where you've got your preferred crew.
Yeah.
Because, you know, people can conduct themselves properly around clients and
exactly. Yeah, the people I have on set, I know, regardless of what they may be like offset, behave on set. Usually it is difficult to find that sort of crew, but we've got there now. But I don't get stressed anymore for this one simple fact. I get booked to do exactly what it is that I do, and that's all I do, and I know exactly how to do it. And even if I don't know how to do it, if Paul's in the room, he knows how to do it. And if Paul doesn't know how to do it, then the next guy down will know how to do it. And if they don't know how to do it, the DigiTech will know how to do it. Like, the majority of what I do, anyone can do. The only bit I can do that no one else can do is those small details where it's like, this is what makes it my work.
Yeah.
So like, I don't worry about technical stuff not working or kit failing, because we have loads of kit. We rent the entire rental house a lot of the time, you know, huge volumes of kit in normally 3 camera bodies, you know, 20 lights, 5 packs. We're using 1. Most of it never comes out of the box, but it's always there just in case.
Yeah, which again is as you progressed, you know, when you're starting off, you don't have all that available.
You start with a speed light and a camera, don't you, and hope for the best. You don't even realise it could go wrong at the start. There's no thought that, oh, it might just...
Until the first time a shutter fails on a camera, then you understand
what's this black line? But yeah, I don't really get stressed anymore because I know I can do it. And if I can't do it, I know people can help me. And I know that's also okay. As long as you know how to get the answer, that's the main thing. And also, I think just having done it for 15 years makes a big difference.
Yeah, again, you build a sort of base of experience.
Yeah, exactly.
This isn't your first rodeo anymore. You know, you kind of been here, you've seen that shoot before.
Yeah. I can't imagine what could possibly not be working on set that I've not fixed before.
I mean, it's only just getting back to the point here, when it's a one-day shoot, it's your biggest enemy is time.
Yeah, it's getting it all set up on time. We often do pre-light days the day before, which the client pays for, which is where we have like a skeleton crew in. So like no digitechs, no stylists, no producers, just me and the assistants. We get set up. That's a good cost saving thing for the client.
And it allows you to hit the ground running straight. Get
Yeah,
a start
because
on the day, which is
normally like a shoot day is 8 till 6. And if we've done a pre-light day, we're shooting by 9 a.m. If we've not done one, we're probably not shooting till lunch because it takes that long to get set. So yeah, that's all, doesn't really bother me anymore. Definitely did in the past. I think, sometimes you get like weird clients who have like odd requests that don't look good, which is difficult to deal with, but you get better at it anyway over time, I suppose.
Yeah, just let's just say hundreds and thousands.
Yeah, yes. And then the other thing is like going back to having the big crew. I've got a really good crew. Like the sheet's going to be fine anyway. They're all really good. I know what I'm doing. Like I always pre-lit it on paper beforehand because despite the fact that I don't do all this stuff on set, I can literally meter a shot and measure it out. I can go, right, we'll have this light here at 4 meters at 1200 watts. We'll be at f16. We'll have a fall off of this. The shadow will start here. So I can do all of that on paper, get it all down, hand it to my assistant. I'm like, this is exactly how it works. And they go and do it. And like, I don't need to like always physically do it first. I can do it pen and paper and know what it will look like afterwards. I still don't know how to change the ISO though on my camera. I have to do it from the computer. I don't know how to do that. Which is embarrassing, but again,
full marks for ergonomics, Fuji.
There must be you'll have to show me afterwards. There must be a button on there somewhere to change the ISO, but I'm doing it on Capture One to change the ISO, which is fine because
you always shoot tethered. So.
Yeah, so it's just I feel there should be an ISO button somewhere. Maybe there isn't. It's hidden by the bellows or something. But there we go. That's how I cope with stress. When starting, not well. Over time, gets better. It just takes time. I think it takes a long time as well. I'd say for 10 of the 15 years, I was very stressed.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Yeah. And now I just go, it's going to be fine.
I mean, ironically, you're less stressed now. I mean, the biggest premises and the biggest overheads you've ever had.
Yeah, even from like a financial sense, like, we're literally hemorrhaging money at the moment. Like the money's just like pouring out of this door all the time. But it'll be all right. Always is. Yeah, don't worry about it. What else am I going to do? Get a job. I can imagine someone employing me. 2 o'clock. Where do I go for my nap? I think I'm beyond 9 to 5ing it. No one would ever be able to tolerate me.
And of course, you need a massive cage for Theodore Barksville.
Yeah, I've got my dog sleeping next to us. He's huge. But there we go. So next up on the big list of things to do, what is your go-to source of inspiration? Is there a photographer's work you've recently seen that you think everyone should check out? I'll let you lead in this, Rob. Just throw you under the bus there.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I don't study an awful lot of photography, and at the risk of sounding overly reverential, especially in the early days, you were actually my inspiration.
Oh, I'd say that.
This is when I first bought a camera, I had no plans to do anything with it other than I bought one because I didn't have one. And I was recently single and I thought I'd treat myself to a toy because no one's going to buy me anything nice for my birthday. And then as you kind of do, you kind of look around in at least in your local area, you're like, who's doing what sort of thing. And, you were very good at I'm only going to post one photo from whatever I've done because one photo is always better than the others.
Yeah, I've always had that viewpoint. And there's always the best shot.
And a lot of people would just carpet bomb with like 70, 80 images from a local gig, in a local pub sort of thing. And you just post one. And it always had more weight, more gravitas doing it that way round. And it just seemed that your work was just immediately better than everybody else's that I looked at. So that's why I sort of made a point of meeting you at the Western Park Festival.
Yeah, sounds like that is where we met.
Just deliberately, I'm going to find a way. I want to meet this bloke because he's interesting.
I think I was shooting a security company or something.
You were, yes. You worked out how to make money at a music festival.
Yes. Yeah, I was good at doing that. I've always been good at working out how to make money from things. And yes, if you're going to shoot musicians in music festivals, don't shoot the musicians. Shoot the security companies. They've got big pockets.
Get paid for that.
And what about for your video work? Because you do a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly at the moment, my favourite director by a mad country mile would be Denis Villeneuve, who did the 2 June movies.
Yep.
Just absolutely stunning. Just wow. just from a cinematography point of view, literally incredible. I mean, and this is one of those, if you look at the amount of money that companies like Marvel spend on their films, like average film is quarter of a billion, 250 mil, more or less, which means that to make any sort of money, it needs to take about $1 billion back at the box office. And almost none of them are getting anywhere near that. I mean, they're hemorrhaging money like at an unbelievable rate. Now, Denis Villeneuve rocks up with the two Dune movies that cost still a lot of money, somewhere in the 180, 190 million pound region. So not a cheap day out at the races by any stretch, but it looks worth every single penny of that. You can kind of see where the money's gone. It isn't all shot on green screens. And, even trying to do like they do with a lot of the TV shows now, more and more virtual productions becoming the norm, things like The Mandalorian. And again, looks great because it's fast and it's relatively cheap, and it will, I think, make green screens basically obsolete. But then even here we are in sort of 2024 with movies like Dune 2, and they still coming up with new things like sand screens is now a thing. Who knew?
I did not know.
But that's how they blocked out most of the sets with actual sand screens. So it's all painted the same colour as sand and what have you. So again, reflections, lighting, and everything all look legit. And yeah, brilliant. So, that and another guy, again, who kind of broke Hollywood a little bit was Todd Phillips. If you remember the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie.
Yeah.
Again, cost a mere 50 million to make, which again, in Hollywood terms, still a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a fifth of, that's probably what they spend on an average Marvel movie on catering. And again, looked incredible, well acted, well directed, a good story told well, and cost 50 million and took $1 billion at the box office.
Yeah. So when you're going to make one of your short films, where does the idea come from?
For me, it's always come from my friend who's the writer, Mr. Richard James.
Yep.
Him off of the Whiskey Rebellion. Also, is a drummer and a writer. So he will give me a script, and then when I kind of read it, you kind of the images pop up in your head.
Right.
You can kind of as you're reading it, you can kind of see roughly what you think it's going to look like. We normally have a little chat previously to the actual writing of it. So, what are you thinking? The first one I says, just want to do something cool. If I have a style, it tends to be dark and gothic, at least in terms of moving pictures. That's kind of my sort of go-to. Just because I've got a dark soul and kind of like the way that these things look. And I think everything looks better shot at night. That's just me.
Yeah.
And then with the second one came along, he says, "Well, what are you thinking?" I said, "Well, I'd like to do a kind of a detective movie, like a noir." Because originally I was thinking of doing it in black and white, and then started grading it. It just looked so much better in colour, so that became a neo-noir.
Yep.
But again, it's just that's where the conversation started. But for me, it always come from the writer. Again, I recognise my lack of skill when it comes to writing, so hand that over to somebody who's much better at it than I am. And then I can make it look nice. That's kind of where that. So the inspiration would always come from the script.
Yeah, and then you put your own personal taste onto the visuals.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's pretty. I mean, I don't personally look at a particular photographer outside of being an agent, where I look at them but from a very different perspective. So, but I do like certain things. I love Wes Anderson films, which I'm sure everyone could have guessed anyway from my work. Absolutely love Wes Anderson films. Currently rewatching The French Dispatch. But also there's this great series where they did Roald Dahl books and Wes Anderson them with Benedict Cumberbatch, who I also like. So I like that. I like Coen brother films. No Country for Old Men, like big, expansive, static cameras. About to swear then, realize I can't because it's going on the podcast apps. I really dislike gimbals in movies or moving cameras. I like still static shots. And if they're going to move, they should move left to right, right to left in a perfectly straight line.
On the dolly track.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is my preference for moving images. In terms of still photographers that I like, I'm a huge William Eggleston fan, massively so. Really like his work. But apart from that, nothing particular really springs to mind. But for shoot ideas, I generally have an idea and then, like you do, make it look like my work. So might see a child eating ice cream and it's melting all over their hand, shoot a series of ice creams like that to sort of like...
You have done that?
Yes, I have done that. As a literal example. I saw that happening and went, right, let's make this a thing. You go to someone's house and the lights beaming through the kitchen windows, hitting the fairy liquid bottle, and you go, that looks pretty cool. Let's go and shoot some fairy liquid bottles, but make it look like my stuff. So it's just observations from life, really. I don't think following photographers to get inspiration is a good thing. There's a few people online at the moment who literally just copy my work. So much so that I actually thought someone was reposting my images, because not only are they copying it a bit, they're placing every single item in the exact same place.
Yeah, and the same item.
The same item.
Not just a brand of washing up liquid, but it had to be a fairy bottle.
Yeah, like it just literally like carbon copying it, which is fine. I don't care. But like, you don't want to be that person. That's not a good look. That's not photography. That's just plagiarism.
I mean, it's always easiest to do it once someone else has done it first.
Exactly. So I think, it's just trying to find, the bit where you're getting inspiration from the world, you already know what your vision's like, and then you recreate it. And, I think we'll dive right to the bottom of this here, which is, what key elements are agencies and photo agents looking like getting representation. What everybody wants to see is a body of work that no one's ever seen before. And so as soon as you're looking at another photographer for inspiration, you don't stand a chance. Nobody wants to see my work recreated by 5 other people. There's no interest in that at all. What they want to see is somebody create something completely different. And now that I work as an agent part-time as well, I say part-time, it's slowly becoming all the time, but it's only small snippets of time. Like being an agent, it's not like you're working 9 to 5. Yeah. Phone call comes in, you take it. Otherwise, you do a bit of marketing here and there, which is my 1 day a week. But the rest of the time, it's quite a cushy job. I see what they do. It's I enjoy it.
Nice little bolt on.
Yeah, it is actually. But yeah, when I look at photographers' work, so I got something like 2,500 portfolios sent to me, and I could not tell you a single photographer's name from the bunch because they all look the same. And as soon as somebody looks different, we sign them. And what we want is not better, we want different. We don't want who can get the perfect gradient down the side of a bottle. We want who's done it differently to everyone else. So whatever you're doing, if you're looking at other photographers, stop and just do it different. But yeah, so the questions in terms of agencies, I'll start with this one at the bottom because this is kind of a good one, is how do I find representation agencies in my city? I don't know what your city is, but I can guess from this. I've tried Google or Instagram searches for photography agencies and only the big ones come up. I'm not sure if I'm ready for those. I'm trying to find a medium one so I get a better portfolio. There are no medium ones. There are no small ones. There's only big agencies. There's no, it works on commission. So it's between, it averages about 20% commission. And nobody's got any interest in taking 20% of £500 or even £1,000. It doesn't work. So there are only big agents and they only exist in big cities, photographically speaking, not, physically. So like London, New York, Paris. That's where you'll find a photo agent. Mostly London and New York, and outside of that, it's not really. Don't know. Have you had much to do with the photo agents?
Not personally, other than when we've had to hire them for things. Which is the strange thing. Is, for example, you're looking for somebody who's like, how would I, for say one of my projects, find a photographer or someone to do sort of styling? It's like, well, I don't know anyone, so I guess we'll get an agent to do it.
Yeah. Who have you got in your books? Yeah, so yeah, there are no small agents, and if they are, I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole, because
I think at a certain level, you are your own agent.
Yeah.
And then once you get to a bit further down the line, then you have an agent represent you.
Exactly, and when you get a bit further down the line, you employ a manager, because at that point the commission becomes more than the salary.
Yeah.
These people want big salaries as well, but yeah, so there are no small ones. The way to get noticed is to send your portfolio into them and for it to be a collection of work that is original. And the way that I describe it is like, it just has to be different. The more out there it is, the more wacky it is, the more unexpected it is, the better. Don't try and look like anyone else, because no one wants to sign you because you won't get any work.
Yeah, you just need something that catches your eye, really.
Yeah, just be you. And if you don't know what you are, go and discover that. And it sometimes takes a while. And
again, a point we harp on about almost every podcast is the importance of doing personal work.
Yep. Yeah, personal work is king. You got to keep doing personal work, keep doing, and again, like people are, what age you sort of end being a photographer at? I know photographers at 30 who stopped doing test shoots and who are now like stagnant and dead. And I know photographers who are 60 who continue to do test shoots and still get bookings all the time. As long as you're constantly creating personal work, you'll keep getting bookings. People just want to see new work all the time. You just have to constantly keep shooting.
Yeah, and your tastes change over time as well.
Oh, absolutely. And this sort of brings us into another point, which is a great segue there. I don't know if that was intentional or not. But yeah, do you find it easy to have a signature style of photography, i.e. bold and graphic, yet be flexible with types of subjects and genres you shoot? I've been wondering, since you mentioned adding portraits to your work, and yeah, this is what you're talking about, like you change with time. So in terms of, I'm going to go for a very long-winded answer to this sort of thing here, but like in terms of your work, so if you want to get noticed quickly, do one very specific thing in one specific style. What I did was I shot food, only food, in my style, which is kind of like playful, childlike, bold and graphic, 90s colors. That was me. And it's much easier to get noticed for being that photographer than it is for being the photographer who does everything. As you get noticed, though, and as your style becomes more known in the industry, and like all the ad agencies know what it is, and all the agents know what it is, and then go, I apply this brushstroke to drinks. So I did that for a year. Then I went, do you know what? I've done some drinks campaigns now. I applied this brushstroke to products. Did a big product campaign. I know, I'll apply this brushstroke to people. No matter what you give me to shoot, it's going to look like my work. Now some people can't shoot people, but I was a portrait photographer for over a decade, so I can shoot people. I'm not sure how good it is for my mental health to be shooting people or physical health, but I can shoot people. So I do shoot people now in my style, and it looks like my work. If you put my portrait next to my drink, next to my food, next to my product, it all looks the same. And that's the kind of aim. And like you were saying with changing as you move along, I always think of it like albums and musicians. So I'm going to use Kings of Leon as an example because I've discovered that this is a band that most people around the world are familiar with.
Yes.
I used to use Muse as an example. It turns out not everyone knows who Muse are. So Kings of Leon, first album, comes out with some sort of like proper church, hillbilly, rock sort of raw album. Brilliant. And that album, if you listen to it, start to finish, makes perfect sense. Their latest album's kind of like some pop, dance, something or other thing. I've not really listened to it much, but that album makes perfect sense. If you start mixing the tracks between those two albums, it does not play. Yeah. You cannot listen to it. And photography works in the same way. So you create your album, which is your portfolio, which, digitally I take around on an iPad, and I take prints as well. Because we've got so much video now, we need digital portfolios, which is now socially acceptable. But you take that album, you tour it, you show it to people, and you go and shoot that album, which is going on tour. You keep shooting it, and then you go, I'm done with that now. I want to do something different.
Yeah, back to the studio.
Back to the studio, new projects, shoot some new stuff, and it might change a little bit, like the Kings of Leon second album did, change a little bit. And you go off and do it. Do a third album, change it a bit more. And then you might go, do you know what? I've been doing this sort of similar kind of thing for 10 years. I want to do something completely different. You shoot something completely different, and then you tour that. But what you can't do is keep changing every week. You've got to commit to it for a good chunk of years and be like, this is what we're doing now. And of course, you can be doing stuff in the background secretly. I'm always doing secret shoots in the background that no one ever sees, just to see, what happens if I, add this to this, or if I, put a bit of this with a bit of that. How does that pan out? But yeah, what about you? What's your views on the whole style? And
well, I think from just a basic point of view, that if you're not doing personal work, you don't really know what you like. You're just looking at what everybody else is doing and think, well, I should be doing this. It's only when you do stuff and you're like, do you know what? I like that. And then you start to find yourself. I guess it's like, as you know, I'm no musician. I've tried for about 3 months of irregular guitar practice, and believe it or not, I was not a virtuoso after 3 months. I thought, well, this is bare effort. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
So I have so much time and admiration for people that do. And let's face it, every note has been played up and down the neck of a guitar. So when you find a musician that can just put things together in the correct way, but they've sat there for hours, weeks, days, months, years, fiddling and trying to work out what their style is and what they like.
Yeah, it doesn't happen quick, does it? And And it is, it's like, I think a lot of people, they learn how to take a photograph and think that's the job. And that is not the job. Like that's the technician's job. Like anyone can like put a gradient down the back of something, put a catch light. So that's not the job.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody can make, and we've all seen this so many times, and we've all, and definitely myself, fell into that trap of trying to create a technically perfect.
Yeah, that never looks good.
And technically, it's great, but is it interesting?
Yeah.
And that's the key thing above all, is it interesting?
So I do that, like this is slightly wrong on my part, probably bad form. But I do this thing where I'm sat with my agent and they're like, this image is the one. This is what we're doing next. And I'm like, watch what happens when I post it on YouTube. So you notice every now and again I post a photograph on YouTube. And that's one which in the industry has been accepted as good. On YouTube, it gets slated. So we did that burger trio last time.
Yes.
Like that has got me work already. People are like, oh, the shadows are all over the place. You know, all these like comments about stuff. And I think one day I am going to do a reshoot of a shoot with all the feedback from people on the internet.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you took all this feedback and you made everything perfect like they wanted to, it would look horrific.
Homer's car.
Yeah. That was a great Simpsons episode.
I know. But that's literally what you would end up with.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like, oh, you've not controlled the shadows. It's like, obviously, I have controlled the shadows. I've placed the lights when the shadows have landed. What they mean is the shadows aren't even. But if you make them all even and there's depth, then suddenly the depth disappears. Like, the plinths are all slightly different colours. It's like, yes, because of the different distances from the light, and that's how light and colour work. So they will be. But if I make them all the same, it'll look like I've shot 3 different things and stuck them together.
Yes.
Like, that's what photographers are, is knowing when to have imperfection and when to make something textbook perfect. Like the Kenview job we did, that bottle of Listerine is so perfect. And when we were shooting it and lighting it, I was like, this is too much. So we knocked it 5 degrees to the left, so it's slightly wonky. And obviously everyone in the comments, that bottle's wonky, it's leaning slightly to the left. I'm like, yes, otherwise it looks like a CGI cutout.
Yes, exactly.
Like, you've got to.
That's why it's interesting, because you've stopped and looked at it, because it's not quite perfect.
Exactly. And it's, you know, it's difficult because I also, back to my point, what most people think is photography is learning how to get it perfect. What photography actually is applying your opinion to it. And whether your opinion's good or not is a different matter. I don't always think we can necessarily have everyone having a good opinion. And it's good to who. Like, my opinion of what I think looks good is agreed upon by the commercial world, but it could as easily have not been.
No,
it's just by chance.
I think photography was best described as painting with light.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at a Picasso, technically, it's a bad painting.
Oh, God, yeah.
The people don't look like real people, and you know, but it's Picasso.
Exactly.
It's, again, he's put his stamp and his style on it. And I think, you know, that's the takeaway from that, really.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, just don't get caught up in all the perfect. Nothing needs to be perfect. CGI is what you do if you want perfect.
Yeah.
You know, which maybe we should do an episode on CGI at some point. I'll bring my CGI guy in. He's brilliant from London. He makes his CGI look not too CGI, because nobody actually wants CGI because it looks like CGI.
Yeah,
it's what you do when you can't. Yeah, and it's expensive as well. More expensive than photography.
I mean, and
to be done well,
and it takes longer.
It takes longer. It costs more money. So all these photographers go, "Oh, we're going to lose all our work to CGI." You're not. It's not going to happen. But yes, so the last topic of this is money, estimates, usage, you know, all of that sort of stuff, which is where a lot of photographers fall down. And it's something I've got really good at over the years, but obviously completely sucked at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is sort of go through how I estimate a job, what goes into it, and usage as well. And yeah, so generally speaking, we need some information to do an estimate. Now, the important thing to remember is an estimate is not the final price by the definition of the word. We're just saying, this is what we think it's going to cost. You know, we will let you know how much it actually costs. And generally speaking, you go to a big company and you go, here's our estimate. They'll go, here's a PO number for that estimate. And once you've got that, that's kind of in the UK, you're legally binding, like we've sold it to you. But then at the end of the job, you do the reconciliation and you give them the actual price. And, you have to keep them updated as the shoot goes on. You're like, look, if we do this now, we're going to go $2,000 over budget.
Yeah.
Can we get a sign off on that? That's the estimate. So to do an estimate, you need to know what is it they want shooting? How much of it do they want shooting? How do they want it shooting? And what are they going to use it for? So once we know what the item is, we can look at the item and see how technically difficult it will be to make that photograph, for how they want it photographing, and then we can add usage for what they're going to do with it. That's all we need, really. It's not much more than that. We then work out how long it's going to take.
And it dictates what kind of crew you would need to achieve that. So, which of course all builds into the estimate itself.
Yep. So we take that, we go, look, from experience, we know that doing a shot like this is going to take about 4 hours per photo. You need 8 of them, so we're going to do 2 shots a day. This is the crew I'm going to need to get into place. This is all of their costs, like line iteming it all. And then you want to use it for this. Here's the usage on top of that. And that's it. Pretty simple, really. I say simple. They can become quite complicated, but that's roughly how we do it. Now, in terms of how much we charge for these things, the day rates are pretty reasonable, I think, for photographers. I think most photographers are on between 2.5 to 3.5 grand a day in the UK at the moment, apart from like the big names like Rankin and, big fashion photographers and stuff. But in what I do, the usage is where we make our money. So that is...
And I think certainly that's something that, and myself included in that, something when you're starting out, you're simply not aware of. You're blinkered into thinking, my day rate is what I earn from these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, obviously working with you, it's like, what do you mean you charge them usage? What's this usage of which you speak?
And usage can be a lot. So if somebody wants to use one of my photographs for social media, it might be an extra $5,000. We recently licensed 2 images that I did on personal work just to be used on social media. We charge them $5,000 an image. For worldwide, so the one you want is usage in perpetuity, which means we want to use it forever, however, and that is big money.
Yeah,
like that is huge. And I remember when I started in photography, I was like, I don't understand. I'm charging the same day rate as this other because I remember someone telling me the day rate of a famous food photographer at the time. Like, oh, he charges this much. I was like, I don't get it. I charge that much. How's he got a studio full of Broncolor kit, a Hasselblad, and living in London? I don't understand. And then I discovered usage and realized the day rate's meaningless. Yeah. The day rate is basically the number that you use to multiply by to work out the usage. So if you go into the if you Google AOP usage calculator, go and have a play on that and then watch your eyes water. Sadly, at the moment, we're probably going 30% under that number because it's just
time stuff.
Yeah, they're unreasonable. Those numbers are. They're too much. They are too much. But that is how the usage happens, and it can be a lot. I have on a single day shoot made several years' salary just on usage. But also sometimes there's no usage. Just wants web only, and it's like great. We'll put an extra $1,000 or so in there.
Yeah, which always. When you sending stuff out to agencies for licensing, so like I've shot Download Festival, you don't get paid for shooting Download. You're very lucky if you actually get a photography pass to go and shoot it. The hope is that somebody will pick your pictures up and use them for something. I being a bit of a rock metal fan and what have you, shot like biggest bands like Metallica, Slipknot, all these great bands. I thought I'm going to make a fortune out of these. Never did. The most money I ever made as a music photographer was from 5 Seconds of Summer, where I got woke up the following morning, £1,200 worth of images sold.
Brilliant.
Because it was the last day of the UK tour when the Daily Star picked it up in print.
Perfect.
And I was like winning.
Yeah. Usage is key. And there's another question here about usage. Like, how do you get small companies to understand licensing? You don't. If I turned around to the company next door to me and went, well, I've shot those images, how do you want to use them? Why? Well, so I can charge you for it. Well, I've already paid. And one, they don't understand, which is fine. But 2, they do not have the budget. What they've just paid you as their day rate is all the money.
Yeah.
That is it. There is no usage on small jobs. There is no usage on small. They get all usage. They get it all. Now, you can specify usage, but why bother, is my opinion. If a local company wants something shooting, I just go, it's this much.
Yeah, you're basically working on your day rate at that point.
Yeah, it's just day rate.
And by the time you're getting into people, when agencies start getting involved, they already know and understand and expect the quote for usage.
Exactly. And they also will say, they'll often say, can we get an estimate? We don't know what the usage is yet, but it'll be one of these three. And you price those usages up. And a lot of it is guesswork. Use a calculator for a bit of it, but the rest of the time it's like, oh, what can we get away with?
Well, yeah.
That's where an agent comes in.
Say using, one image one time on, social media is one thing, but to have it running in magazines for 12 months is a very different thing.
Exactly. And then, to have it used as a still at the end of a TV advert. We did something for a very famous bank years ago where they licensed stills to like flit up on the frame really quickly. And TV usage is brilliant. And you get charged per still. And it wasn't much. It was something like, well, I say it wasn't much. It was like $5,000 a still or something like that. But it was going at 24 frames a second.
Yeah.
It was like cha-ching. But yeah, that's not happened for a while. It's I think we've got 2 big usage jobs coming up soon. But apart from that, this year's been mostly like 1 year licensing because everyone's scared. So not a good earner.
No, but I mean, that again dials down to it's an election year and things are a bit strange.
Exactly, which is why we didn't go and buy loads of stuff this year. Hopefully.
Yeah, it's not over yet. But
no, yeah, that's true. I don't think I need anything else. I could do with a second camera now that we're definitely committed to Fuji life. Do we like the Fuji for retouching? This is not the gear episode, but with...
yeah, I mean, I would say it's fine.
Yeah.
Dead pixels notwithstanding.
Yeah, why are there so many dead pixels?
Well, you need to do a sensor remap.
I might get you on that.
That's my belief. But I mean, it's so fast and easy to sort.
Snowstorm in there.
I know it's like dandruff on an image.
Yeah, but oddly, for a big sensor which is exposed on bellows, no sensor dust.
No actual sensor dust.
Which is insane. But we'll leave that for the next episode, which I'd imagine we'll get more views in this one. This is the important episode. The next one, we're going to chat gear excessively. But there we go. Anything to add, Rob? I realise I've done most of the talking on this one here.
No, it was a wise man said to me, Rob, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use it in that proportion, you do all right in life.
I've obviously not listened to that advice, but there we go. But yes, thank you all for tuning in again. Any questions for the next podcast? Just pop them down.
And anything you guys would like to know about, and please, put it in the comments. And as you can see, we do read them. So please,
from small films, independent movies, video work, whatever it may be, between us. We can probably answer it or find somebody who can.
Or find someone that knows, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Right. See you all soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao for now.